The massive ship floated in the empty space between stars. Its metal walls gleamed under the light of distant suns. Inside, the main meeting room buzzed with nervous energy. Aliens from 12 different worlds sat around a giant table, all waiting for the same thing. Today was the day they would meet humans for the first time. Ambassador HFY adjusted his crystal-like body in his chair. His people, the Catherians, were made of living stone that could think and move. Every time he shifted, tiny chimes rang from his joints. He looked around the room at the other aliens. There were the tall, thin ethereals who glowed with soft light. The blob-like collective members pulsed different colors as they communicated. The metal silicon beings clicked and whirred as they processed data. All of them were nervous. "The human ship approaches," announced the ship's computer in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "Docking will begin in 5 minutes." HFY touched the data pad in front of him. It held everything they knew about humans. The information was strange and worrying. These creatures came from a planet called Earth. The planet was covered in water that could drown you and land that could kill you. It had storms that could level cities, and cold that could freeze your body solid. Somehow, humans had not only survived on this death world, they had thrived. "Their bone density is 3 times higher than ours," whispered one of the ethereals. "And their muscle mass. It makes no sense for a thinking species." "Perhaps they are warriors," clicked a silicon being. HFY said nothing. He had read the reports too. Humans were heavy for their size. Their bodies were built like they expected to be hurt every day. They had redundant organs, extra thick skulls, and bones that could support massive weight. For thinking beings, they were built like living weapons. A soft thud echoed through the ship. The humans had arrived. The main door slid open with a quiet hiss. 3 figures walked into the room. HFY felt his crystal body go cold when he saw them. The humans moved with a strange grace, like predators pretending to be calm. Their leader was a female, with dark hair, pulled back, and wearing simple clothes. "Hello," she said, and her voice carried easily across the room. "I am Dr. Sarah Chen, representing Earth and humanity. Thank you for inviting us to this meeting." HFY noticed how she stood. Her feet were planted firmly on the ground. Her shoulders were straight. Even in a room full of aliens who could destroy her, she showed no fear. Behind her, the 2 male humans looked just as calm. "Welcome," HFY managed to say. His voice chimed like broken glass. "I am Ambassador HFY. We represent the Galactic Council. We are pleased to meet your species." Sarah smiled. The expression showed her white teeth, and several aliens around the table shifted nervously. "We brought some items to share our culture," Sarah said. She gestured to one of her companions, who carried a large box. "We hope this will help you understand humanity better." They spent the next hour sharing basic information. The humans seemed friendly enough. They spoke about their home planet, their government, their science. But HFY noticed things that made his crystal skin crawl. When Sarah mentioned their recreational activities, she used words like climbing mountains, and diving to ocean depths, and jumping from aircraft for fun. These sounded like death sentences, not entertainment. "Perhaps," HFY said carefully, "you could demonstrate one of these activities?" Sarah's eyes lit up. "Of course. I practice something called martial arts. It's a form of physical exercise and mental discipline." The aliens cleared space in the center of the room. A demonstration platform rose from the floor, a solid piece of reinforced metal designed to handle any stress the galaxy's strongest species could produce. It could support a full-grown Gravari, beings made of living rock who weighed several tons. Sarah stepped onto the platform and took a deep breath. "This is a simple kata, a series of movements that help train the body and mind. She began to move. What happened next would haunt Zexhi's memory cores for cycles to come. Sarah's body flowed like liquid death. Her fists cut through the air with sounds like breaking wind. Her feet struck the platform with impacts that rang like thunder. She spun, kicked, and struck at invisible enemies with speed that made the aliens' advanced sensors struggle to track her movements. Then came the sound that made everyone freeze. Crack. A thin line appeared in the demonstration platform. The reinforced metal, designed to withstand tremendous force, had developed a fracture under Sarah's strikes. Crack. Crack. More lines spread across the platform's surface. Sarah finished her demonstration and turned to face the aliens with that same calm smile. She wasn't even breathing hard. The room was dead silent. "That was just a basic routine," she said pleasantly. "I hope it was informative." Zexhi stared at the cracked platform. His crystal body was vibrating with fear frequencies that his people reserved for natural disasters. Around the table, other aliens showed their own signs of terror. The ethereals had dimmed to almost nothing. The collective members had turned a deep red color. The silicon beings were calculating frantically. You broke our platform," whispered one of the ethereals. Sarah looked down at the cracks and her eyebrows rose. "Oh, I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize it would be so fragile. On Earth, our training equipment is much sturdier." Fragile. She had called their reinforced military-grade platform fragile. "What do you use for training on your world?" Zexhi asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "Oh, lots of things," Sarah said cheerfully. "Trees, rocks, sometimes just the ground. My teacher used to make us break boards and bricks with our hands. It helps build character." The silence stretched on. Every alien in the room was processing the same terrifying thought. If this was what humans considered basic exercise, what were they capable of when they were actually trying to fight? Sarah seemed to sense their discomfort. "Did I do something wrong? I know first contact can be delicate. If I offended anyone, I apologize." "No offense," Zexhi said quickly, his voice still chiming with fear. "We are simply processing what we have observed." But inside his crystalline mind, alarms were screaming. These humans weren't just survivors from a death world. They were living weapons who didn't even realize how dangerous they were. And they had just introduced themselves to the galaxy with a smile and a demonstration that could have been a threat display from the most feared warrior species in known space. First contact was supposed to be peaceful. This felt like the beginning of something much more complicated. The tour of the ship had been going well until they reached the recreational facilities. Sarah walked between Ambassador Zexhi and the ship's medical officer, a tall ethereal named Lumara whose body glowed soft blue when she was calm. Right now, she was barely glowing at all. "This is our universal exercise chamber," Zexhi explained, gesturing toward a large metal room with thick windows. "It can simulate the gravity and atmospheric conditions of any known world. We use it to help different species stay healthy during long space voyages." Sarah peered through the window with obvious interest. Inside the chamber, mechanical arms moved back and forth, creating resistance for whoever was exercising. The floor could tilt and shift to simulate different terrains. Gravity generators could make the room heavier or lighter, depending on what was needed. "That's amazing," Sarah said. "What's the strongest setting?" "It can simulate up to 12 times standard galactic gravity," Lumara said proudly. "That's enough to challenge even our strongest species, the Gravari." "The Gravari are made of living rock?" Zexhi added. "They weigh nearly 2 tons each and have incredible physical strength. This machine was designed specifically to give them a proper workout." Sarah's eyes lit up. "Could I try it?" Every alien in the group went very still. "You want to use the exercise chamber?" Lumara asked slowly. "If it's not too much trouble." "I've been sitting in meetings all day. and I could use some physical activity. Plus, I'm curious about alien exercise equipment. Clued Ring. In quote. Zexhai and Lamara exchanged glances. After what they had seen in the meeting room, they weren't sure this was a good idea. But Sarah was their guest, and refusing might seem rude. Perhaps we should start with a very low setting, Zexhai suggested. Maybe 2 times standard gravity? That should provide adequate exercise for a human. Whatever you think is best, Sarah agreed cheerfully. They entered the control room next to the chamber. Banks of computers monitored everything, from air pressure to gravitational fields. A technician, a silicon being covered in blinking lights, operated the controls. Setting gravity to 2 times standard, the technician announced. Activating basic resistance protocols. Sarah entered the chamber and began some simple stretches. Through the window, they watched her bend and twist, with that same fluid grace they had seen before. Even under double gravity, she moved like the extra weight meant nothing. She seems comfortable, Lamara observed. Perhaps we could increase it slightly. 4 times standard gravity, the technician announced. Sarah continued her routine without missing a beat. She did push-ups against the chamber floor, pulled herself up on the resistance bars, and performed a series of kicks and punches that made the air whistle. Remarkable, Zexhai murmured. 4 times standard gravity would crush most species. And she acts like it's nothing. What about 6 times? Lamara suggested. The technician's lights blinked in a pattern that meant nervousness, but he complied. 6 times. Standard gravity. Activated. Sarah adapted immediately. Her movements became more deliberate, but she showed no signs of distress. She actually seemed to be enjoying herself. Let's try 8, Zexhai said, fascinated despite his fear. 8 times standard gravity, the technician announced. This time, Sarah had to work. Her breathing became deeper, and sweat began to appear on her skin. But she kept exercising, kept moving, kept pushing herself against the crushing weight. Incredible, Lamara whispered. 8 times standard gravity. She's exceeding the capabilities of most known species. What about 10? Zexhai asked. The technician hesitated. 10 times, standard gravity approaches dangerous levels, even for Gravari. I think she can handle it, Zexhai said, though he wasn't sure why he believed that. 10 times, standard gravity activated. Sarah grunted as the weight hit her, but she adapted again. Her movements became slower, but maintained their precision. She was clearly straining now, but she wasn't stopping. This is unprecedented, Lamara said. We should document this. The scientific implications are enormous. 12 times, Zexhai said, almost hypnotized by what he was seeing. Let's see her upper limit. Are you certain? The technician asked. Do it. 12 times standard gravity activated. That's when everything went wrong. The technician's manipulator arm slipped on the controls. Instead of activating 12 times gravity, the computer interpreted his command as 15 times. At the same moment, a software error triggered the kinetic resistance barriers, safety devices designed to stop someone from hurting themselves in the chamber. But the barriers had been calibrated wrong. Instead of providing gentle resistance, they activated at full combat simulation strength. Sarah was caught completely off guard. 15 times Earth gravity slammed down on her like a giant fist. At the same instant, 3 kinetic barriers struck her body with the force of speeding vehicles. The sound was horrible. Crack, crack, snap, pop, crack. Through the window, they watched in absolute horror as Sarah's body twisted under forces that would turn most aliens into liquid. Her left arm bent at an impossible angle. Her ribs made sounds like breaking sticks. Her leg folded wrong, and she crashed to the chamber floor. "Shut it down!" Lamara screamed. The technician's lights flashed in panic patterns as he scrambled at the controls. The gravity field collapsed. The kinetic barriers deactivated. Emergency systems flooded the chamber with medical scanners. Sarah lay crumpled on the floor, breathing hard. The scanner results appeared on the screens around them, and every alien in the room made sounds of horror. 17 fractures. Broken ribs, broken arm, broken leg, cracked collarbone, fractured wrist. Enough damage to kill most galactic species 3 times over. Medical team to the exercise chamber immediately. Lumara called into her communicator. We have a critical injury situation. They rushed into the chamber, medical equipment ready. Lumara knelt beside Sarah, her hands glowing with healing energy. Don't move, she said urgently. You're severely injured. We need to get you to the medical bay immediately. Sarah turned her head and looked up at them. Her face was pale and covered in sweat. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead. But impossibly, incredibly, she was smiling. I'm fine, she said. You are not fine, Lumara protested. You have 17 broken bones. Sarah braced her good arm against the floor and started to push herself up. What are you doing? Zexhai cried. Don't move. You could cause more damage. But Sarah was already sitting up. She looked down at her obviously broken arm and twisted leg with the calm expression of someone examining a minor scratch. Fine, she repeated. Then she used the wall to pull herself to her feet. Every alien in the room made sounds of absolute terror. Sarah stood on a broken leg, with 17 fractures throughout her body, and acted like it was a minor inconvenience. The medical bay is this way, Lumara said weakly, pointing down the corridor. Thanks, Sarah said. Then, impossibly, she began to walk. Not hobble. Not crawl. Not lean heavily on the walls. Walk. She favored her good leg and held her broken arm carefully against her body, but she walked under her own power, leaving a trail of stunned aliens behind her. Fine, Zexhai repeated to himself, his crystal body chiming with frequencies of pure terror. She said, fine, but as he watched Sarah disappear around the corner, walking away from an accident that should have killed her, he realized they had made a terrible mistake. They hadn't just met another species. They had met something that couldn't be broken. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began 3 hours after the accident. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the grand chamber, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, chimes, hums, and harmonics that filled the massive space. Ambassador Zexhai stood at the central podium, his crystal body reflecting the chamber's lights in nervous patterns. Around him, the tiered seats rose in concentric circles, filled with some of the most intelligent beings in the galaxy. But today, they were all afraid. The incident has been reviewed by our medical staff, Zexhai began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. The humans suffered 17 separate bone fractures, under forces that would have instantly killed most known species. A ripple of disturbed sounds moved through the assembled delegates. Her response, Zexhai continued, was to smile and say, fine. Then she walked to the medical bay, under her own power. The ethereal collective's representative, a being of pure light named Harmony, pulsed with agitated colors. This suggests severe psychological damage. Perhaps humans have no pain receptors? Or their minds are damaged by evolution on their death world? Negative, replied Datacore 7, the Silicon Sovereignty's delegate. His metallic form whirred as he processed information. Scans confirm that humans have extensive pain receptor networks, more sensitive than most species, not less. She felt everything. Krub. The chamber erupted in confused noise. Species that had never agreed on anything suddenly found themselves united in bewilderment. Council leader Vex Thul, an ancient creature whose species was among the first to reach the stars, raised one of his many tentacles for silence. His translation device turned his thoughts into words that everyone could understand. We must determine what threat level to assign to humanity, he said slowly. The safety of the galaxy, may depend on our decision today. Representative Scartooth of the Predator clan stood up, his massive frame covered in ceremonial armor. His species was among the few warrior races in the galaxy, and they had earned their place through strength and honor. I have reviewed the combat footage, he growled. The human's demonstration was not aggressive display. It was casual. She showed no anger, no battle readiness. She was simply moving normally. That makes it worse, whispered Gentle Current of the Peaceful Union. Her species had evolved from prey animals and could sense danger better than most. If that was normal movement, what are they capable of when threatened? Data Core 7's lights blinked rapidly as he accessed information. I have analyzed transmissions from Earth. Humans engage in activities they call extreme sports for entertainment. These include jumping from aircraft, climbing mountains, diving to ocean depths, and racing vehicles at fatal speeds. The chamber fell silent. For entertainment? Harmony asked, her light flickering with disbelief. Confirmed. They also engage in combat sports, where they deliberately injure each other for the approval of crowds. This is considered normal social behavior. Representative Softshell of the aquatic worlds made a sound like water draining. Their planet must be incredibly hostile to produce such beings. What else have we learned about this Earth? Anjen. What else have we learned? Zexhai activated a holographic display showing Earth's statistics. The numbers made several delegates physically recoil. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, he read. Surface gravity 1.3 times galactic standard. Atmospheric oxygen content high enough to cause spontaneous combustion. Weather systems include hurricanes, with winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. Tornadoes that can level structures, and blizzards that can freeze exposed flesh in minutes. Impossible, breathed Gentle Current. No intelligent species could evolve under such conditions. There's more. Zexhai continued grimly. The planet's surface is 70% covered by water, deep enough to drown most species. The remaining land includes active volcanoes, shifting continental plates, and extreme temperature variations. Native predators include creatures weighing several tons that hunt in coordinated packs. And humans survived this. How? Scartooth asked. They didn't just survive, Data Core 7 interjected. They conquered it. Humans live in every environment on their planet, from the frozen poles to burning deserts. They have built cities in areas that would kill most of us within hours. Council leader Vexthul's tentacles moved in patterns that indicated deep thought. What does our medical analysis tell us about human physiology? Medical director Lumara appeared as a hologram in the center of the chamber. Her ethereal form was dim with exhaustion from treating Sarah. The human is healing at an unprecedented rate, she reported. Bones that should take cycles to mend are showing signs of repair after only hours. Her pain tolerance appears to be roughly 10 times higher than galactic average. Most disturbing, she refuses to rest and insists on continuing normal activities. What kind of normal activities? Harmony asked. She requested access to our library to continue her research. When I suggested bed rest, she laughed and said she had walked off worse injuries. Then she asked if we had a gym. The silence that followed was deafening. Representative Iron Will of the Stoic Assembly finally spoke. His people prided themselves on emotional control and physical endurance. Perhaps, he said carefully, we are approaching this wrong. The human shows no aggression toward us. Her behavior suggests not violence, but resilience. Maybe they are not warriors. Maybe they are survivors. What's the difference? Gentle Current asked. Warriors fight to conquer. Survivors fight to continue existing. One makes enemies, the other makes allies. Scartooth's armor clinked as he shifted. The female mentioned others of her species. If she is not even considered particularly strong among humans. That thought hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If Sarah Chen, a scientist who studied alien life forms, was just an average human, what were their soldiers like? Their athletes? Their actual warriors? Data Core 7's analysis had reached a conclusion. Based on available data, humanity should be classified as a persistence predator species. These are beings that survive through endurance, rather than speed or strength. They exhaust their enemies by simply refusing to stop. Refusing to stop. Vexthul repeated slowly. Yes, I think that describes what we witnessed today. The debate continued for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. Humanity would be classified as a Class 7 persistence predator species. Dangerous not because they were aggressive, but because they were apparently impossible to deter or disable. Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Sarah Chen sat up in her hospital bed, reading alien medical texts with fascination. Her 17 broken bones were healing so fast that the monitoring equipment couldn't keep up. When Lumara came to check on her, Sarah had only one question. "This is fascinating stuff," she said, gesturing at the alien medical texts. "But I'm feeling much better. Do you think I could get back to the diplomatic meetings? I'd hate for my little accident to delay first contact. We have so much to learn from each other." Lumara stared at her patient. 17 broken bones. Little accident. Lumara. Little accident. In the council chamber, the debate was reaching its climax. Species that had existed for millennia longer than humanity were trying to understand beings who treated catastrophic injury as a minor inconvenience. They didn't realize yet that they weren't just meeting another species. They were meeting the answer to every impossible situation the galaxy had ever faced. And that answer was always the same. Humans didn't know when to quit. Sarah's recovery was progressing at a rate that defied all known medical science. By the second day after her accident, she was walking normally. By the third day, she was asking if the ship had a running track. The alien medical staff watched in amazement as bones that should have taken months to heal completely repaired themselves in less than a week. "This is impossible," Lumara muttered, scanning Sarah's arm for the 5th time that day. "The fractures are completely gone. Not healed. Gone. As if they never happened." Sarah shrugged, a gesture that made several watching aliens flinch. They had learned that human body language often involved movements that would injure other species. "Bones grow back stronger after they break," Sarah explained casually. "It's how human children develop properly. Most of us break several bones growing up. It's normal." The medical staff exchanged horrified glances. Normal childhood development involved multiple bone fractures? "Tell me about your childhood," medical researcher Humnall requested. His species, the Data Seekers, existed to understand the universe. Right now, humans were the most confusing thing he had ever encountered. Sarah settled into a chair that had been specially reinforced after she had accidentally bent the previous one by sitting down too hard. "Oh, the usual stuff. I grew up in Colorado, in the mountains. Lots of hiking, camping, rock climbing. My parents took me skiing when I was 4. "Skiing?" Humnall asked, his translator working overtime to find equivalent concepts. "You strap long boards to your feet and throw yourself down mountains covered in frozen water at high speed. For fun. Looting too. For fun. Looting too. For fun." The room went quiet except for the sound of Humnall frantically taking notes. "I broke my wrist the first time," Sarah continued cheerfully. "Hit a tree. But I was back on the slopes the next week with a cast. My parents said I needed to get back on the horse, so to speak." "Your parents sent you back to the dangerous activity while you were still injured?" Lamara asked weakly. "Well, yeah, you can't let fear control you. Besides, the cast made a great weapon in snowball fights." Several aliens quietly left the room. They had reached their daily limit of human insanity. But Sarah was just getting started. "Oh, that reminds me of summer camp. Have I told you about summer camp? She hadn't. And over the next hour, she described an experience that sounded like military training designed by sadists. Human children were sent into wilderness areas with minimal supplies, forced to climb trees, swim in dangerous waters, and sleep outdoors in all weather conditions. And the best part, Sarah said, eyes bright with memory, was when they would wake us up at 3 in the morning for surprise hikes, 20 kilometers through rough terrain in the dark. Character building, they called it. Character building, Humnal repeated faintly. Absolutely. You haven't lived until you've been lost in the woods for 6 hours because your compass broke and you had to navigate by the stars. The alien researchers were beginning to understand why humans had survived on a death world. They hadn't just survived. They had turned survival into entertainment. Ambassador HFY entered the medical bay, carrying a data pad filled with questions from the Council. The past few days of reports about human behavior had the entire galactic government in an uproar. Dr. Chen, he said formally, the Council has some questions about human society, if you don't mind. Of course, what would you like to know? HFY looked at his notes. First, we've received reports that humans engage in something called contact sports. Could you explain this concept? Sarah's face lit up. Oh! Sports! I love sports. I played rugby in college. Rugby? It's a game where two teams try to carry a ball to opposite ends of a field. The other team tries to stop you by tackling you to the ground. Full contact. Minimal protective gear. You deliberately collide with other humans for entertainment? It's great exercise. Really builds teamwork and pain tolerance. HFY's crystal body was making stress sounds again. What about this thing called American football? Oh, that's the really intense one. Players wear armor because the impacts are so hard they'd cause serious injury otherwise. The goal is basically to run into each other as hard as possible while moving a ball around. And this is popular? Hugely popular. Millions of people watch it. The biggest game of the year basically shuts down the entire country. HFY made a note. Humans enjoy watching other humans commit violence for entertainment. This is considered normal social behavior. What about individual activities? He asked. Well, there's boxing, where you try to punch your opponent unconscious. Mixed martial arts, where you can use punches, kicks, and grappling to defeat your opponent. Wrestling, where you try to pin someone to the ground. Oh, and there's hockey. Hockey. You put sharp blades on your feet, grab sticks, and chase a rubber disc around a sheet of ice while deliberately checking other players into walls. HFY was running out of space in his notes. Every human activity sounded like a death sentence to his species. Dr. Chen, he said carefully, are there any human activities that don't involve potential injury? Sarah thought for a moment. Well, there's chess. Chess? It's a strategy game where you simulate warfare on a board with small pieces representing armies. Simulated warfare. Right. The goal is to capture the enemy king. It's been around for over 1,000 years. Very peaceful. HFY felt a small relief. Finally, something that didn't sound designed to maim or kill. Although, Sarah added thoughtfully, competitive chess can get pretty intense. Players have been known to have heart attacks from the stress. And there was that famous incident where someone threw a board at their opponent. The relief died. Dr. Chen, Lamara interjected, what do humans do to relax? Oh, lots of things. Reading, watching movies, listening to music, going for walks on the beach, hiking in the mountains, maybe some light rock climbing. Light rock climbing, Humnal repeated, making another note. Sure. Nothing too serious. Just a few 100 meters up a cliff face. It's very peaceful once you get up there. Great views. What if you fall? HFY asked. Well, you try not to. That's part of the fun, the challenge. although most of us have fallen at some point. I fell about 30 meters once, when my gear failed. 30 meters? Lamara gasped. Yeah, that hurt. Broke 3 ribs and my collarbone. But the rescue team got me down safely, and I was climbing again within 2 months. You went back to the activity that nearly killed you? Of course. You can't let one bad experience ruin something you love. Besides, falling taught me a lot about better safety techniques. The aliens stared at her. In their minds, a 30-meter fall was basically attempted suicide. To Sarah, it was a learning experience. Dr. Chen, Zexhai said slowly, among your people, are you considered particularly brave or tough? Sarah laughed. Me? No, not at all. I'm just a scientist. I spend most of my time in laboratories and libraries. If you want to meet tough humans, you should talk to our athletes or military personnel, or firefighters, police officers, emergency medical technicians, search and rescue teams. She continued listing occupations where humans routinely risked their lives to help others. The list went on for several minutes. In fact, she concluded, most humans would probably think I'm pretty boring. I've never jumped out of an airplane or run with the bulls, or swum with sharks, or any of the really exciting stuff. The room was dead silent. Finally, Humnal asked the question that was on everyone's mind. Dr. Chen, what is the most dangerous thing you've ever done? Sarah considered this seriously. Well, there was the time I went cave diving in an underwater cavern system in Mexico. The visibility was maybe 2 meters, and if your equipment failed or you got lost, you'd probably drown before anyone could find you. And you did this. Why? The cave paintings were incredible. Some of the earliest human art, preserved in a flooded cave. Completely worth the risk. She had risked her life to look at pictures on a wall. For the first time, the aliens were beginning to understand humans. They weren't warriors, or predators, or monsters. They were beings who found the impossible irresistible, and they had just introduced themselves to a galaxy that was full of impossible things. 3 months after first contact, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with activity as representatives gathered for an emergency session. But this time, the energy wasn't fear. It was excitement mixed with a kind of awed respect that had never existed before. Sarah Chen sat in the section reserved for new species, but she wasn't alone. The Council had officially invited humanity to join the galactic community, and Earth had sent a delegation of 12 humans to serve as ambassadors. Each one had caused their own small sensation. Commander Martinez, Earth's military representative, had accidentally bent a door handle while introducing herself. Dr. Okafor, a geologist, had offered to personally survey a planet that had been considered too dangerous to explore for 3 centuries. Engineer Singh had looked at the specifications for a failed space station and casually mentioned that the design flaws were pretty easy to fix. But the real change in the galaxy had started with the incidents. The first had been the vegan colony crisis. A Class 9 death world that had been partially terraformed suffered a massive ecological collapse. When their atmospheric processors failed, the 20,000 colonists were trapped with only days of breathable air remaining. Every species in the galaxy had declared the rescue impossible. The planet's surface was covered in acid storms, the gravity was crushing, and the radiation levels would kill most beings in hours. The Council had been preparing evacuation plans when Sarah Chen stood up in the middle of the session. "We'll handle it," she had said simply. Council leader Vex Thul had tried to explain why it was impossible. The environment would kill any rescue team. The equipment needed didn't exist. The logistics were overwhelming. Sarah had listened politely, then smiled that same smile she'd shown after breaking 17 bones. "With respect, counselor, you're thinking like someone who's never lived on a death world. We know how to do impossible things." The human rescue mission had launched 6 hours later. 4 ships, 43 volunteers, and equipment that most species would consider medieval. While alien rescue teams planned and debated and calculated, humans had simply strapped on protective gear and headed into hell. They had saved every single colonist. The second incident had been the siege of Station Harmony. A terrorist group had taken control of a major trade hub and threatened to destroy it if their demands weren't met. The station's defensive systems had been turned against its inhabitants, creating a maze of deadly traps and automated weapons. Military experts from a dozen species had analyzed the situation and concluded that any assault would result in massive casualties. The terrorists had turned the station into a death trap that would kill more defenders than attackers. Commander Martinez had studied the tactical reports for exactly 30 minutes before requesting permission to proceed. "Ma'am," the Kytherian military advisor had said, "our projections show a 95% casualty rate for any assault team." "Good thing we're not most species," Martinez had replied. The human assault team had stormed the station, using tactics that made alien military historians rewrite their textbooks. They had moved through lethal kill zones like they were training exercises, shrugged off wounds that would have crippled other species, and maintained cohesion under impossible conditions. The siege had ended in 47 minutes with 0 civilian casualties and only minor injuries to the assault team. But it was the third incident that had really changed everything. The ethereal homeworld had been dying. Their sun was experiencing solar flares that would sterilize their planet within days. Billions of lives hung in the balance, and their only hope was to somehow redirect the solar radiation using a network of satellites that had to be positioned manually in the path of the flares. It was a suicide mission. The radiation levels around their sun would kill any being instantly. Even their most advanced protective technology wasn't enough. Dr. Okafor had volunteered. "The suit modifications are pretty straightforward," she had explained to the horrified ethereal engineers. "We'll need extra shielding and better heat dissipation, but humans have worked in high radiation environments before. Chernobyl, Fukushima, deep space. We've got experience with this stuff." Dr. Okafor, the chief engineer, had protested. "The radiation levels will deliver a lethal dose in under 60 seconds. Then I'll work fast." She had. In and out, in 47 seconds. Positioning satellites with precision that saved an entire civilization. When she had returned to the ship, her equipment had registered radiation levels that should have killed her 3 times over. She had been back on duty the next day after a routine medical check. Now, as Sarah looked around the council chambers, she could see how much had changed. The aliens no longer looked at humans with fear or confusion. Instead, there was something new in their expressions. Hope. "The council recognizes Dr. Sarah Chen of Earth," Vex Thule announced formally. Sarah stood up, careful not to move too quickly. She had learned that sudden movements still made some species nervous. "Thank you, Council Leader. I wanted to update everyone on humanity's integration into galactic society." She activated a holographic display showing a star map dotted with human activities across the galaxy. Earth has established rescue stations on 12 previously uninhabitable worlds. Human teams are currently providing emergency response services to 47 systems. We've also begun a joint training program where humans teach survival techniques to other species. "And the results?" asked Representative Scartooth. The warrior had become one of humanity's strongest supporters after watching human Marines in action. "Outstanding. We've seen significant improvements in survival rates across all participating species. Turns out, when you learn how to fall properly and keep moving when you're injured, you tend to live longer." Data Core 7's lights blinked in agreement. Human stubbornness training, as they call it, has reduced casualty rates in our mining operations by 67%. 1. More importantly, added Gentle Current, whose species had overcome their prey instincts by learning human persistence techniques, "We're attempting things we never thought possible before. My people have begun exploring ocean worlds that we previously considered too dangerous." Council Leader Vex Thul's tentacles moved in patterns of satisfaction. "The galaxy is becoming a place where the impossible is merely difficult. Sarah smiled. That's very kind. But we're not special. We're just used to things being hard. When you grow up on a world that's trying to kill you every day, you learn that impossible usually just means nobody's figured it out yet. An alert chimed through the chamber's speakers. The communication officer, a new species that had recently joined the council, looked up from her station with excitement. Emergency rescue request from the Outer Rim, she announced. A deep space mining operation has suffered catastrophic system failures. 200 miners are trapped on an asteroid that's been knocked out of orbit and is falling toward a black hole. The chamber went quiet. Even with humanity's addition to galactic capabilities, this seemed genuinely impossible. The gravitational forces around a black hole would crush any rescue ship. The time window was impossibly small. The logistics were overwhelming. Every alien in the chamber turned to look at the human delegation. Sarah was already standing up, that familiar smile spreading across her face. "Sounds fun," she said. Commander Martinez was checking her equipment. Dr. Okafor was calculating orbital mechanics in her head. Engineer Singh was already designing modifications for their ship's structural systems. "We'll need about 6 hours to prep," Sarah continued. "Could someone contact Earth and request the emergency response teams?" "Oh, and we'll need coffee. Lots of coffee." As the human delegation filed out of the chamber, heading toward what every other species considered certain death, Vex Thul's translation device picked up comments from the other representatives. "Remarkable. They're actually excited about this. Did you see their expressions? They looked happy." The human called it fun. A black hole. Rescue mission. Fun. But Vex Thul understood now what the rest of the galaxy was beginning to learn. Humans didn't see impossible situations as obstacles to avoid. They saw them as problems to solve. And the galaxy was full of problems that needed solving. 6 hours later, the impossible rescue succeeded. 200 miners were brought home safely from the edge of a black hole by a species that had only recently learned to travel between stars. The rescue ships returned to cheers and celebration. But the humans seemed confused by all the attention. "It wasn't that hard," Sarah told the media. "We've done trickier things on Tuesday afternoons." As she spoke, reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Human rescue teams were responding to disasters on 6 different worlds. Human scientists were working on problems that had baffled alien researchers for centuries. Human engineers were building things that other species had declared impossible. The galaxy was changing, one impossible rescue at a time. And somewhere on Earth, in mission control centers and training facilities and research labs, more humans were preparing for their chance to help. Because that's what humans did when the universe said something couldn't be done. They smiled. They said fine. And they went and did it anyway.